Well, it's finally over. The trial of the century, this century, probably the biggest trial, the most followed trial, the most talked about trial, the most contentious trial, the most consequential trial since O.J. Simpson, maybe. Yeah, maybe since O.J. Simpson. And I followed it. I watched quite a lot of it. And I also followed the media frenzy, which you're no doubt aware of if you've been living on planet Earth in the last few weeks. So I was in two minds about how it was going to go, because as I'm sure you're aware, the prosecution had to prove not only that Derek Chauvin caused his death. Now, we've all seen the video. I've seen the full, well, I think it's the full video. Like, this was going on, this kerfuffle was going on a long time before the final few minutes that everybody's seen that's gone viral. There was a lot of, this was just a nightmare scenario. And prosecution had to prove that George Floyd, who had a number of issues, health issues, drug-related issues, that Derek Chauvin caused his death, that it was beyond reasonable doubt. And as well as that you know, there was no doubt that it couldn't have been the fact that one of his arteries was 90% blocked, the fact that he was completely high on fentanyl and meth, I believe, and possibly other things at the time. And he also had an enlarged heart, I believe. There was a lot of stuff going on. And this whole situation blew up. You all saw the final moments of George Floyd's life. And having watched the actual trial, I don't know. There's a lot of nuance here. And you don't get that in the media. You do not get that in the media. But then we live in a soundbite age. We live in an age where everything has to be summed up in 3 seconds. People only read headlines. They never read anything past the first paragraph. In fact, a lot of media do that. They'll stick the pertinent stuff in the second last paragraph, knowing most people don't read that far. And the verdict came in guilty. It came in guilty on all counts. He's going down. Now, with the way America has become, certainly in the last couple of years, and through the Trump years, America has become an absolute powder keg, an absolute knife-edge society. And since the George Floyd killing, this has just ramped up 1,000%, fueled in many ways by the baying hounds of the media, and especially the mainstream media. You have to understand, the mainstream media is dying, or at least they're in a pitched battle with the likes of YouTube, with the likes of independent creators, with the likes of other channels that are not TV or radio, internet. And they're also trying to fill a 24-hour news cycle. You need a lot of news for that, and you need it to be happening all the time. So the mainstream media needed this. They needed Trump because it drives clicks, it drives views, It gets eyeballs on their content, and they are desperate for all they can get. So this was manna from heaven for them. And that's why they're eager to fan the flames. They're eager to pour petrol on the fire, because it drives clicks. It brings people to the store. Now, that's on the one hand, but on the other hand, in societal terms, forget about the business end of things, because media outlets, your CNNs, your Fox News, all your TV and radio stations and channels, they're businesses. They're there to make money. They need to make money. That's their whole raison d'etre. Their reason for being is not to provide you with the absolute pure truth, despite what they'll say. Their whole reason for existing is to make money for their shareholders, whilst providing you with news, or their version of the news. And nothing drives clicks more than chaos, more than constant revolution, constant change, constant violence, uprising, unrest. This is science. The numbers are in, the studies have been done. They know from the clipboard crunchers what drives people, what makes people look, what makes people watch. The whole George Floyd thing, because with the age that we live in, it was all captured on body cam. Everybody had their phones out. The crowd that was there was filming every single second of this. This was all happening in real time, live, in the moment. Something that has never really happened in the history of the human race. Everybody's now a filmmaker. Everybody is now a documentarian. And this is what the big networks are up against. They're up against this. And so they need to drive their corner of it for all it's worth. Now, having ramped the pitch of the temperature of this situation, as you've seen with the Black Lives Matter marches, I don't think there's any major city in the West that hasn't had a Black Lives Matter march or protest. We've certainly had them. It was the hot button issue this year, or last year. And the downside of stoking this fire, of fanning these flames, is that society gets ever more polarized. It's like the snowball rolling down the hill. There comes a point where the momentum of a thing takes over, and it becomes destructive. And I think a lot of this has become destructive. And whilst I believe the whole situation was utterly wrong and utterly distasteful and a terrible tragedy, an absolute catastrophe, I really don't believe that Derek Chauvin went to work that day with any intention of his day going that way, with any intention of being in the eye of this storm, with any intention of killing a man, or killing a black man, killing anybody. I think it was just another routine call you get over the radio, and he just went to do it, probably like he'd done a million times before, and it all went horribly wrong. Should he be in prison? I believe he should, yes. I believe he should be in prison. My own view is that I believe, having watched the trial, manslaughter would have been what I would have gone for myself. Don't think he intended to do it. I think the whole thing got out of hand. George Floyd himself is a big guy. He's a big man, 6'7" or something. Derek Chauvin's 5'8". If a guy like that goes for you, goes at you, I can understand. You don't want a guy like that, high as a kite, kicking off with you. So what he did was wrong. I've looked at some of the testimony from various witnesses. There's different ideas on whether was he trained to do that way, but I've certainly seen documentation from the Minneapolis police that I could see in the diagrams. Yes, it was something they did. It was a method of neutering potentially violent subject. Did he do it in the right way? Well, that's a matter of conjecture. But no, I don't think he intended to do it. I think the whole thing got completely out of hand and it ended in absolute tragedy. And should he be in jail? Yes. Should he go to jail? I think so. For murder? No. I would have gone for manslaughter there. But because the thing has become so passionate, because the whole situation has become so overloaded with pure tribalistic venom and hate, and we live in a world today where the media are driving this narrative that there's racism everywhere. Everything is racist. Everyone is racist. Well, obviously every white person is racist, and that black people just get the wrong end of the stick all the time, and that is a narrative that is being driven on absolute steroids in the States, and even in our own country here in Ireland. There's rarely a day goes by where there isn't a news article in one of the main newspapers or on the TV about the new arrivals or the newcomers to our Irish family here, who may come from Africa or be black, that somehow we are inherently racist and need to keep constantly checking our privilege. And so this is a world. I won't say it's a world thing. It's certainly a Western thing. I'll tell you where it's not happening. It's not happening in China. It's not happening in Russia or a lot of Eastern Europe. It's not happening in Japan. It's not happening in Korea. This seems to be very much a Western European / United States, Canada, Australia, the West, as we consider it, the West. The whole city centre. There was messages going out from all the big corporations for their employees to just get out of town, get out of the city centre, leave, go home, get away. They were ready for the whole thing to burn, and America would have gone into flames. America would have burned down, not just for yesterday. It would have been like the initial riots multiplied by 100, multiplied by 1,000. And I think in the end, they threw him to the wolves. I think the jurors, out of pure fear, they just said, "Look, we're not taking a hit for this." They would have also been doxxed, been hunted, been their lives would have been destroyed, their families' lives would have been destroyed. I guarantee you there would have been mobs showing up to their homes. They weren't going to take a dive for that. They weren't going to take a duck for that. I don't know where this goes. If I was to opine, I would imagine that they'll appeal it. They're going to appeal this. I think the judge, the jurors, everybody connected with this trial was wholly aware of what they were dealing with, of the powder keg they were sitting on. And they just didn't want, it wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth the hassle. It wasn't worth, the price was too high So they just said, look, there you go. There's the verdict you want. Now can we go home? It's going to get kicked into the appeals court, and it may even end up in the Supreme Court. If I was to place a bet on it, I think right now, with the absolute frenzy that is going on about this, there couldn't have been a fair and free trial. It's just no way. There couldn't have been. It could not have happened. And nobody connected with that was going to pay the price. The massive life-changing price that would have went with, as the mobs would see it, the wrong verdict. It's going to go to appeal. I think appeal will overturn it. They may go for a lesser manslaughter charge. They're going to hope that by the time that kind of ekes its way through the system, that maybe the mob will have gone on to something else. The mainstream media will have gone on to something else. Because right now, this was just somebody holding a nuclear bomb in their arms, and it was a question of, will you press the button or not? America would have burned to the ground. I think it'll go to appeal. I think it'll be modified to manslaughter or something like that, and I think it may even go to the Supreme Court. But we are in very scary times, and I can't help but get this sense that America is imploding. It really is. The frenzy, the passionate tribalism, the polarization of that society is almost off the charts now, and I see no sign of it slowing. I honestly see no sign of it slowing. I see the media doing everything it can to ferment it, to fuel it, to fill their 24-hour rolling news cycles. That's a free press. They can do that. They can do that. Where it ends, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But it's not healthy. It's not good. And I'm not hopeful. I don't see how this ends. I don't see how this ends good.